Welcome to Baseball and Coffee, episode 29. This is Tuesday, June 7th. What's going on, Aaron?
Not too much. How are you today?
I'm good, man. Beautiful day.
Yeah, it's about to rain here. It's been pretty nice this morning, but I think we're about to get a storm.
It's been about Walla Walla. It's been in the 70s. It's been pretty amazing.
Good.
Today, we're going to go over a little coffee stories, our TGFBI update, a real quick overview of our Fantrax league. We'll do our preseason top 10 at third base, and then where we are present and rest of season. We'll each share one rising prospect hitter that we've highlighted, series that we're looking forward to, open forum, and cards. Cool. You got a coffee story for me?
It's a loose coffee story.
All right.
So this falls into losing your coffee card.
Mm-hmm.
So today we went to the farmer's market to get some produce, and I had a wellness latte.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with this, but typically there's, I think the most popular one's like a golden milk latte.
Mm-hmm.
But I had like a red,
Mm-hmm.
I had like a red beet latte made with coconut milk. But I was just curious, do you consider that blasphemy to use the word latte for something that's not remotely coffee? And then if you've ever tried one, what your thoughts were?
Yeah, so do I consider it blasphemy? Calling it a latte? Yes, I do. Have I had golden milk? Absolutely, with turmeric and I don't know what else is in it, and it's pretty tasty. It's just not, for me, a latte signifies coffee.
Yeah.
So they're tasty, they're awesome. It's just, again, as far as I'm concerned, not a latte.
Well, it's interesting because cafe latte is coffee with milk, so latte is just the milk part.
Sure.
But we
Understood.
still make that connection of like latte is coffee.
I do. That's one of the few times I'm not technical, I guess. Yeah. So my story is just that because it's been nice here in Walla Walla, I've been able to have my coffee outside in the sun in the morning. And while coffee is, one of the three things I look forward to during the day, there's nothing better than sitting outside in early morning, having a cup of coffee and a big jar of water, and just to get started with the day. So I don't know. It's one of those things that I think you take for granted sometimes, the opportunity or having the time to actually sit outside with a really good cup of coffee and get some fresh air to start your day. But I just wanted to share that that's something that has become really important to me, and I don't recognize as gone in the wintertime. So come on, summer, let's go. It's been awesome. So far, it's been really, really awesome. Kind of like our TGFBI team. So we are currently in first, third in hitting with 60 points, second in pitching with 64 points, but that is good for 10th overall. And when we say overall, it's 465 teams, is that right?
Yeah, that gets in that neighborhood.
So 10th overall out of 465 teams, or 485, something like that, is pretty darn cool. That's where we stand right now. We have a pretty decent lead in first place. Do you want to expand on any players that you want to highlight for our TGFBI week?
No, I mean, our week was okay. We were sixth in pitching and fourth in hitting. Hitting was a little stronger. We had 262 with 12 home runs. We have struggled last week in ERA and strikeouts for our normal standards, but a couple of our starters didn't have their usual outings. So kind of absorb those performances and know that's been the exception so far. Yeah, player wise, nothing really jumped out. Just overall, just a solid hitting week and kind of a middle of the road pitching week that kept us where, kept our footing for this week.
You're not going to talk about my boy Kyle Schwarber? Schwarber was 318, 464, 909. That's slugging, not OPS, with 4 home runs. It was about time he broke out. His underlying metrics say that he should be hitting for a lot more power right now, and he showed it last week. So he carried us. He hit a third of our home runs for the week.
Yes.
The other thought I have is, and I've had this thought the last couple of weeks with our TGFBI team, is even when our pitching is by our standards pretty bad, we still perform pretty well within the league. And so we got pretty poor starts from Nola, Cease, and Marcus Stroman. And but we still, we still came out okay. I think we have a lot of room to absorb some pretty poor starts at times because of the way we built our staff. It's interesting because we built it that way, anticipating Cease being up and down. And he was kind of our wild card. And what it's done for us, though, is it's allowed us to take some chances on others as well, because Cease has been consistently good.
Yeah, I love the Schwarber call out, and I did think about him this week because he was someone we talked about last week, some of the concerns about where his performance to date. And I think I made the comment, I was like, he's going to break out at any time, and you just got to hang with him.
Mhm.
That approach just always serves him. It's gonna come around because of his approach.
Right.
I got a smoke alarm going off, so can we take a quick break?
Sure. Absolutely. How's that smoke alarm?
It's taken care of. It's one of those always on ones. I can't take the battery out, so I was
Oh,
just
right.
gonna replace it. I think the other interesting thing about our team performance last week on the pitching side, outside of what you highlighted about some of the ratio stats in our starters, is we were tied for first in saves with 4. And we've climbed all the way up to 6th in saves overall after really struggling in the beginning. And it's still an area I think where we could continue to climb. So I think that's a category and a move that's it's been really positive to see those trending up results.
Mhm. It'll be interesting to see if either Helsley or Seawald start to close more. It looks like Seawald is starting to close a little bit more for the Mariners.
Mhm.
And if he holds on to that role, that would really give us a big boost, provided the other 3, Bednar, Doval, and Barlow, continue to have their roles and perform. I know
Yeah.
Doval's been a bit shaky recently, and it makes me a little bit nervous, but
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that they're because of his ineffectiveness against left-handed hitters, of how that's going to affect his role. But he's lights out against righties, and he's young. So
right. It's funny because as a side note, Doval's a player that I have in my MLB The Show dynasty. And it's the same thing with him in the game, where he's got such a lights out, slider and a really good fastball, but he makes me very nervous against left-handers. There are times where I won't use him as the closer because it's going against 3 left-handers in the 9th. But it's funny how there's some translation sometimes.
yeah, absolutely.
So we did place bids on John Birdie and Miranda, and we wanted to cut Jamar Candelario, and neither of those bids were successful. What was the cost on those 2? Do you remember?
I do. I have it pulled up. Jose Miranda went for $24 with a backup bid of 10. And they were going to drop it. They dropped Edwin Rios to pick him up, who's on the IL. And then looking for Birdie went for 14. They dropped Mike Moustakas, who also went to the IL. And the runner-up bid was 6.
What was our bid on each?
I think we bid like 7 on Birdie and 1 on Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
Birdie was the one that we had more interest in.
I was disappointed that we didn't get him. I think he's a useful player, and because he's not a household name, he's a player that's not often valued. I know he's been on our waiver wire for a long time, and even though he had an 800 OPS and has quite a bit of speed, but for me, he's an interesting player to watch, and he's got positional flexibility as well.
Yeah, interesting. The highest bid, just broad in our league, was Brooks Raley, went for 57 with no backup bid.
Mm-hmm.
And we only had 5 bids that had backup bids. The other remainder, 8 to 12 pickups, there were no backup bids.
Interesting.
And Jason Collette, the resident Tampa fan, picked up Connor Pilkington and dropped Paredes after he paid $70 for Paredes last week.
Right, cutting his losses.
Yeah, it's interesting.
This will be a good week. Excited to see where we land. I check, when we first started TGFBI, I would check every couple of days and see how we were doing. And now, probably a product of being in first place, I check every morning when I wake up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was getting in that place and I've tried to push away a little bit
Mhm.
from doing that. Although I think it might be interesting to discuss next time is kind of where we stand in the categories.
Mhm.
I was thinking about that in relation. And what got me thinking about it was our process for being a birdie. We're doing so well in stills. We have a pretty significant lead in steals. And so initially I was a little bit reticent to push in on birdie because that's, I thought, his biggest tool, and you pushed back like he's hitting better,
Mhm.
which is accurate. But it just got me thinking of when we were thinking about making our bids, we're thinking about making these lineup choices, being mindful of where we stand in these categories, like where are we at risk of sliding back if we have a lead? Where are categories where maybe we're just very close to moving up another one, like
Right.
saves, for example. Because there are several categories where we're very tight, like within one or two of three or four teams. There's ones where we have big leads, and there's a couple where like kind of just in this void where there's three or four above us and there's a whole bunch below us, but no one's really close. So
Right.
I think that could be something to lean into, maybe discuss on the pod, um, because I think that's kind of an approach or strategy that other people might be interested in hearing.
Mhm. We did build our teams. I think both our dynasty teams in Fantrax and TGFBI in a way to try to create balance so that we're not pushing and pulling on categories too often. I do think that as you know, we settled into what about the third of the year mark now. I do think
Mhm.
it's appropriate to start to evaluate. But for me, at least in my own, Fantrax team, I think digging too much into like categorical deficits, even in a head-to-head, and seeing where you stand over the course of the year, it can be dangerous at times because I think what has gotten us to, be successful this year, both individually and together in TGFBI, is that we did build teams that were where we attempted to build balance, right? Where we attempted to have double-digit steals and double-digit home runs from each of our outfielders, right? We didn't want to fill our middle infield with players that didn't steal bases. And if we got stolen bases from third base or first base or catcher, that was a plus, but it was something we didn't want to rely upon. So yeah, let's discuss next pod kind of what our individual strategies are, and probably, I guess, flesh out a little bit more with TGFBI.
Yeah, I think balance is a great word because we're second in year to date in pitching, and we're 5 points behind the first team. We're third in hitting, and we're 2.5 points behind the first team, but we're not winning either one. But the combination of being second and third in both pitching and hitting puts us in that overall top 10 overall. You know what I mean? So I think balance is a great word to put why we've been able to be successful thus far. And this is my first year being in this invitational, so I can't speak to like that is the way. But I
Mhm.
think certainly with what we're experiencing so far, it is a way to be successful.
Right.
Not leaning into hunting or going after, you know, all speed guys or all save guys early. By building a balanced team, you really can excel.
I would say, if I had one learning from the past however many years of playing fantasy, that's it, right? For a long time, for me, it was, focus on hitting and build a pitching staff, because I feel like I can find diamond in the rough pitchers more readily than maybe some of my competitors. And I relied on that skill, but I never really, I think you have to get lucky a little bit in that way in order to build a championship team. Or you go the other way and you have people who, they talk about pocket aces, and you might have picked Scherzer and Cole or whatever it is that you picked in the first couple of rounds. One of those guys gets hurt, you already have a shitty offense. All of a sudden your team is kind of sunk, right? So you're
Right.
counting on health from two ace starting pitchers and being able to find offense under a rock. So to me, again, like you said, building a balanced team where you're built with balanced players is, so not only just like all kind of alternating pitching and hitting, but also finding balance in those profiles is at least up to, a third of the way through the season has proven to be successful for the both of us.
Yeah. Well said.
All right, Fantrax. The overall update is you are still in first and I am still in second in our 16-team league. Do you want to give a little overview on how your team did last week?
Yeah, another very similar results. Led led in force by my pitching, continued to struggle. Offensively with the lineup, missed Segura a little bit, I think, from a speed perspective in the infield. Was only able to scratch her out one category on the hitting side. Yeah, and then pitching wise, it's ratio, strikeouts, and just quality innings. My bullpen continues to struggle getting opportunities. Only had 3 saves and 3 holds. So just it's not on fire at this point. Few adjustments I made as I picked up Zach McKinstry. I made the decision to pick up McKinstry for a couple of reasons. Primarily, stop me if you've heard this before, he's multi-eligible. Cue the Aaron Lowe's flex positions joke.
Right.
But he can play infield and outfield. Russell Resource has him on the large side of the platoon right now at DH. He can also play left, right field, third base, or second base. Edwin Rios and Max Muncy are both on the IL. And so I saw a short-term window this week where he could get starts against right-handed pitching in that lineup. And I thought there might be some value to be had there. And given my struggles to put up counting stats, I felt like getting a left-handed bat in the Dodger lineup could have some value. And then secondly, he was minors eligible. So allows me to kind of have an extra player and to flip him and Roansy Contreras based on when Roansy starts to get an extra hitter essentially. And then the other thing I did was I cut my 6th reliever, just going with 5 because I've coming into some better health with my starters. So as we've talked about in recent weeks, I've struggled with holds. So carrying that extra pitcher wasn't necessarily benefiting me categorically. And I wanted to prioritizing basically the strength of my team, which is starting pitching ratios and strikeouts. So I wasn't willing to cut a starter. Made some entertaining or made some efforts to possibly do a trade, but just not much market for starting pitching or much market for trading right now in our league. So those are the 2 minor adjustments I made. A double matchup this week. Just hoping that some of my hitters start to get some of their footing.
So I eked out a win, 6-5-3. My competitor was a formidable one this week. So I won stolen bases with 6, and the number that I love is I had 90 strikeouts again this week. So my strikeout total is consistently really high, but I lost runs. I scored 40 runs and lost by 1, and I had 13 home runs and lost by 1. And I feel like 13 home runs is a pretty substantial total.
It is
in a weekly head-to-head league. I got some really great offensive performances. I talked about Schwarber earlier. And then I got 2 really good 2-start weeks from George Kirby and Martin Perez. Kirby went 12 innings and got a win and had a sub-1 WHIP and a 1.5 ERA, and Perez went 13 innings with 12 Ks, and same deal. So overall, I felt very fortunate to come out with the win, given my opponent's performance. I would like to win when I hit 13 home runs, but it is what it is. And then as far as moves go, I cut Brooks Raley for Steve Okert, and I won't get into that too much, but when the numbers are pretty equal and you may like a player a little bit more than the next, you go ahead and make that move. It was worth a waiver wire move for me to do that. And then when I traded Profar to you, I picked up Andres Jimenez, and I've been pretty fortunate to get some good performance from him. He had a couple of home runs, and I like the player that he is. I'm starting to think that he might be a low-end keeper for me out of my 15. And the other move I made was to pick up Evan Phillips. I had an injury to JP Fireisen, and Phillips was the most, I guess, the reliever that I liked the best when I looked at his profile. It's huge sweeper, over 100% more horizontal break than the average. They classified as a slider, but the average major league slider. And he's got, I think, 5 holds right now, or four or 5 holds right now, but I can see him moving more into that role if he continues to perform well. But that's about it. Little, like, just like you, a couple of little kind of peripheral moves. I guess Jimenez is more than a peripheral move because I've been starting him over Brandon Crawford, and
Mhm.
matchup dependent. If
So he's short eligible as well.
So if Colton Wong is hitting or playing against a left-handed pitcher, then I'll start Jimenez as well. However, interestingly, with Jimenez, he's hitting 7th in that lineup for the Indians, and I don't always like playing hitters that hit 7th, and his walk rate is, I believe it's below 3%. And so
Yes.
there are some things about Andres Jimenez that I don't love, but if he's my stand-in for Fernando Tatis Jr. until Tatis is back, and then I can slide him into a platoon role with Colton Wong and play him at short when Tatis is getting rest, I think that's a pretty good situation to be in. So I feel fortunate to have Jimenez on my team.
Question for you. How many
Go ahead.
2-start weeks did you have last week? Just
Two.
one?
Two,
Okay.
by Kirby and Perez.
Kirby and Press.
And they weren't really they weren't the reason, I think, for my high K numbers. I feel really, I have Logan Gilbert is good for 7 strikeouts per start pretty much. I think Caleb Killian had 6, and then Rodon and Wheeler both consistently get a lot of strikeouts too. So I don't know. I think depth is becoming a much more important idea to think about with regards to starting pitching for me. I've spoken on previous pods about having 6 really good ratio starters, but I think having 8 is more optimal for me at this point in time. Even if my 7th and 8th are pitchers like Brady Singer or Ranger Suarez, and I'm waiting for Suarez to get back to his 2021 form, he's still worth it if he's giving me a couple of or 4 or 5 decent innings.
Yeah, I was curious because you posted 90 strikeouts. The next closest was 75, and now it's from a team that routinely posts like 80, 85 innings. Just really volumes starting pitching. So I was just curious how many 2 starts you had.
Mm-hmm.
The prior week you had low 70s, which is still really good. Yeah, I think anytime you can reach that 70, 75 plateau, you're having a great week.
Mm-hmm. So there was one trade of significance in our league. Alec Thomas was traded for a 3rd round pick. Again, to remind listeners, we keep 15, and then we have 15 rounds of draft preseason. So that 3rd round pick is after 15 have been kept. Typically in the 3rd round, you can get, a middle of the road starting pitcher, a high end holds reliever. Sometimes you can take a shot on a decent closer. Certainly whatever minor league prospects are left are available in that round as well. What did you think about this trade?
I honestly was kind of neutral about it.
Mm-hmm.
I really perceived Thomas as kind of a speed first outfielder. And he's so far turned that around. I think he has more home runs than steals. But I don't think I've really decided where I land on him yet.
What do you project from him moving forward?
So everything I'd read is he was more of a like 12 to 15 home run, maybe 20 steal, decent average player. And he wasn't even close to being the best prospect in Arizona's pipeline.
Right.
But I know he's performed over that so far. But I guess I still would expect more speed. Really, he hasn't really ran that much just yet. And we know that Arizona does run. Varsho runs.
Mm-hmm.
They're not afraid to run. But I'm just curious. I'm curious why he's not running.
I assume it's small sample, right? And having him get more comfortable. I know that he hasn't played up to his actual speed in the minors either. That may come in time. So he was the MLB pipeline had him rated as their 4th rated outfield prospect, which is pretty high. His pipeline had his hit as a 60 and his power as a 55 and run 60. Fangraphs had hit 55, game and raw power 55, and speed 60. What I see from him is as you stated, kind of a 15-15 type outfielder with high on base percentage. He does project to have a double-digit walk rate. To me, that's a pretty decent outfield 3 in a 3 outfielder 16-team league. I think he would play a role, and he might be a low-end keeper. It sounds to me a lot like Andrew Benintendi. They're different players. I think Thomas has more explosion, and he's a better athlete than Benintendi is, but similar type of player from a value perspective. I do think also that he's capable, if he continues to hit at the top of that order or near the top of that order, and Arizona becomes a better offense as Carroll comes up and some of the other players mature, I could see him being an outfield 2 at his peak. So I think that's where the 4th rated outfielder part comes from, is, when you have, for me, it's one of the reasons why I love high walk rates, right? Is you can have a good OPS already, but see your runs get pushed up in a good offense. So if he's hitting at the top of that order and he's got, say a 12 to 15% walk rate, and he's hitting 15 home runs and 15 steals, he could easily score 100 runs. And that's a pretty darn valuable outfielder in fantasy.
Interesting. Yeah.
I also think that it's another example of a manager finding minor league talent that's near the major leagues, and with no intention of actually, raw or playing that player actively, but finding really great value in trade. So it's free. It was essentially free money for the manager that made that trade. Not knocking the manager that gave up the 3rd, because I think while that's on the high end of his current value, there's potential for him to be a very, very good player. Not a prospect that I necessarily love, but I think has, like I said, has quite a bit of value.
Yeah, I think in a 5 outfielder league, the calculus would be a lot different.
Yes.
From small sample caveat, but his barrel rate so far, hard hit rate, sub 20% K rate, to me are all promising signs. His launch angle is only 1.9. So,
right.
And I know you said that he has the pedigree of walking. He's only walking 5% of the time. I'm looking at his swing decisions. He's not swinging a lot. He's only swinging in the zone 62.5%. So maybe being a little tentative, maybe, and he's chasing league average. So it'd be interesting to see. I really want to see what the bat looks like. And I'm just colored by our 3 outfielder OPS league. And
right.
I've always, I won't say dismissed him, but I've just kind of kept him on the perimeter, just thinking his power was capped pretty markedly by the type of pedigree that he had. But
right. I do like the Benintendi comp.
Yeah.
A lot, but he could pop a Cedric Mullins season, and I don't know that it would be that much of a shock to anybody.
Yeah.
If he
his frenzy is 94 percentile, and that's what Savant has it. But that does not always translate to steals. See Ketel Marte.
Right. All right, so we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and discuss preseason third base, current third base, and then move on to our prospect on the rise.
Great.
So third base was a struggle, I think, for a lot of us heading into the season. It was a position where there wasn't perceived depth was very, very shallow. And there's a lot of fear around being able to find an adequate third baseman in fantasy. What were your top 10 third basemen preseason?
Top 10 descending order: Donaldson, Bregman, Hayes, Moncada, Turner, Riley, Arenado, Devers, Machado, Ramirez.
Okay. And so mine were Turner, 10, Moncada, 9, Rendon, 8, Chris Bryant, 7, Arenado, 6, Riley, 5, Bregman, 4, Machado, 3, Devers, 2, and Jose Ramirez, 1. What were your biggest misses and I guess biggest wins with your rankings?
Yeah, I'll save the headline. I think some on the periphery, my biggest miss to the high side was Justin Turner. Having him at 6, him enter his age 38 season. I overrated his ability to continue to do what he has done. because, while the plate discipline has maintained, from a barrel and power perspective, the signs were there that, if there was any drop off whatsoever, he didn't have necessarily the underlying power skills to continue to produce home runs, RBIs, even though he was in the middle of that, very productive lineup. And I think the player that I underrated was Eugenio Suarez, now with the Mariners. He's someone that we talked about, with the potential for a bounce back. I think I overcorrected based on his OBP, expected OBP, but his barrel rate was the best. I mean, outside of Riley at 5, I have to go all the way down to Suarez. This next person has a 15% barrel rate, and he already has 11 home runs this year. And as you said, in the shallowness of the position, that kind of power, I should have weighted that more heavily. But honestly, the biggest miss, the headline for me, is not having Witt on this list. I didn't have him listed in my top 17. I believe I had him at shortstop on the periphery, but I undervalued him being a prospect entering the season. Did expect him to break camp, but thought he would struggle and didn't view him as a viable option to redraft, and he's proving that very wrong.
Right. I think Witt is the real deal. I've really enjoyed watching him play so far this season. I just looked back. Interestingly, I didn't realize that I had Eugenio Suarez at 12. But in my write-up, I think that expected him to vault back into the top 10. And I think those signs were there for him to be a much better player than how he performed last season. For me, the big miss is Bregman at 4. I thought that he would come back. He had a wrist injury, that he would come back and be not the Bregman of old, but be better than he has been. This season, he does have a 13.8% walk rate and the same K rate. And so, that usually portends to being a pretty good hitter, but I think the strength isn't there. He's doing all the right things in a lot of ways. He's got 20.4 degree launch angle, which is not optimal, but it's, he should be able to hit home runs to left field, which is what he's always done for the Astros. But he has his hard hit rate is 38.3%, which is 40th percentile. So I think the strength just isn't there right now. He's able to hit the ball in the air. He's able to hit it at the correct launch angle. He's got a good eye. He's not striking out. He's just flying out over and over and over again. And he's not providing any speed either. He has 0 steals. So maybe as the season wears on and the ball is a little bit more, is flying a little bit more, you might see some more power from him. But Bregman at 4 was a call that I should not have made. Arenado at 6, but I think everybody made that mistake, and he could conceivably be much higher, but I don't know that anybody expected Arenado to break into the top 3. I still believe in the Chris Bryant rank at 7. He's been hurt, but his walk rate and being able to hit in that park should still be good enough to be right in that, kind of bottom of the top 10. Anthony Rendon has been not played up to his contract, but he's not been a horrible third baseman. He's just not the Anthony Rendon that we came to love with the Nationals. And then I think Yoan Moncada is too small of a sample, but he's not walking. He's striking out a ton, and I'm starting to get a little bit nervous about Moncada. I guess, and then the biggest miss would be Ke'Bryan Hayes all the way down at 15. I didn't know if he would be able to correct his launch angle issue that he had the previous season, but he clearly has. Triple slash so far of 289, 374, 394, 24 runs, 2 homers, but we all know that that's been a bit of bad luck. I think he should have 6 or 7 home runs. He's got 20 RBIs and 7 steals, and he's got his walk rate up to 11.2%, which I don't know that was coming into the season if we anticipated that, his walk rate getting that high. So he would probably qualify, he and Bregman, as the 2 biggest misses for me. Any ranks that were outside of the norm that you were proud of, or that you think were a little bit more spot on than the others had?
I mean, no, I mean, it was, I've already mentioned wit, but I think the other ones were, I would just consider just minor misses. And overall, I felt like my list holds up pretty well
Mhm.
and still reflects the challenges of the position that we
Right.
have. Yeah, and I do like having Hayes at 8, but I don't think he's doing anything that I didn't necessarily expect.
Right.
It's just great to see him continue to grow into himself. Yeah, I was chuckling about your Chris Bryant comment. I would be more worried about Chris Bryant than I would about Moncada, but that's just me.
I believe in Chris Bryant as a hitter. I don't think that, I don't know that he's going to hit 1,000,000 home runs in Colorado. And we all know Colorado is not really a homer park as much as it is giving up gap base hits and outfielders having to play so deep that you can hit singles. But Chris Bryant's a professional hitter. And I don't think that him challenging 300 wouldn't surprise me. And he's always going to take walks. I just don't think he has the power that everybody thought he did. We'll see. I know he also has he tends to hit the ball in the air quite a bit, which is not always the best thing in Colorado. But like I said, I believe in his talent. I'm also glad that the Mariners did not lay out, $100+ million for him and went the route of Suarez and Winker instead.
Right. I mean, he's turned 30, and to me, is the quality of contact. Yes, the plate approach is sound, but he had, in his limited time, he's been able to stay on the field, which is a consistent problem for him. He had 4 barrels, launch angle of 6.8, XBA of 221, xlug of 326. I mean, it's just not much. And maybe he was playing hurt. Maybe that's why the pop is gone.
He's never really been a player that has jumped off the page as far as his hard hit metrics go, right? He's someone who makes contact and he's a good hitter, but he's never had the type of, I think, light tower power that people associated with his first couple of years home run totals. I think he's more of a hitter than a slugger.
Yeah, that's good call out on your part. I mean, his hard hit rates have consistently hovered in the 33 to 36% range, which is much lower than I would expect for someone who's thought of as a power hitter for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I always think he's been more of a 25 home run hitter than a 35 home run hitter. I just think, again, he's miscast because his first couple of seasons, he hit so many home runs.
Maybe
all
he
right,
can
enough
get out there and prove you right.
Enough Chris Bryant talk. Are there any other third basemen that you want to highlight before we move into our rest of season rankings?
I don't think so. I think Rendon, it was just starting to look like himself, and then he got hurt again, which was my reservation of where I ranked him where I did.
Mm-hmm.
Going into it was the fact that he was hurt. I was worried that he wouldn't be able to stay healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, has yet another injury. But he was just starting to look like himself. And I think I even commented to you guys a couple of times in our group that I saw at bats, and like that's where he fought off inside pitches and hit doubles in the gap. It was like, well, that's Rendon, but
Mm-hmm.
the health just remains elusive for him.
I love 12.1% walk rate, 17.9% K rate. Like, he's just another professional hitter, right? He's not very fast. He's got a couple of steals already. He's got 5 home runs. He's trying to come back for his first real full season in a long time. And he's a player I'm really rooting for, even though he's an Angel and I can't stand the Angels. I will always love Anthony Rendon. Always. Yeah. All right, third base, rest of the season. What do you got?
I'm keeping my top 5 the same. I'm not making any changes there. I think it's still Ramirez, Machado, Devers, Arenado, and Riley. Riley is, we worried about a lot of progression from him, but he's already hit 14 home runs. So I think he's delivering power and spades. Mm-hmm. The next 5, I struggled defining an order. I think, Hayes is going to be in that mix. Bregman would be at the bottom of that list, in the bottom half, near 10 or 9. Suarez needs to go up. Like I said, to be in that top 10 as well. And then Moncada belongs in there. So yeah, just throw those 5 in a bucket and see what you get.
That was the most wishy-washy bottom 5
Yeah, it was.
I've ever heard in my entire
It's
life.
almost like I didn't have it written down beforehand.
That's bad. I just saw Ryan Yarbrough got sent down. That's wild.
Really? That
Yeah,
is
I assume Boz is coming up pretty soon, but yeah, they just sent Yarbrough down. Everybody was wondering what was going to happen to that rotation. Interesting.
all right.
Great.
What's yours? Let's hear it.
All right, so I'll go 10-1. 10 is Eugenio Suarez. Watching every Mariners game, I don't know that, what he's doing is going to stop. He's going to continue to hit for power, and he's going to continue to hit 230. But if he's going to hit for this much power, you're looking at 35 home runs and, 90 to 100 RBIs. And I think that's incredibly valuable. 9 is Moncada. I think he's struggling to come back, but I believe in his talent. 8 is Chris Bryant, same as we talked about. 7 is Bobby Witt Jr. Depends on whether you're putting him at short or third. If I have a shortstop that can hit, being able to get those steals and that speed at third base would be really, really valuable. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him closer to the top 5, top 4 by the end of the season. 6 is Austin Riley. I know he has 14 home runs. I've watched him play quite a bit. I still, maybe it's just bias, but I'm not all in with him yet. 5 is Arenado. I know he's played really well, kind of getting back, at least for the first part of the season, kind of back to vintage or peak Arenado. He's fallen off a little bit recently. His approach scares me sometimes because he's trying to basically lift and jerk it to left field every time. 4 is Ke'Bryan Hayes. I'm a believer. Put me down as a believer. I've got him higher than you. I just, he should have more power than he's shown. To be able to get 20 steals at third base is such a huge, huge deal. And he's a baller. Like I've said to you before, he's probably top 5 exciting player for me in Major League Baseball because I love watching great third base defense, and he's fast. He's got an opposite field approach, which I really appreciate. He's kind of a throwback in some ways, to be honest with you, with his all-around game. 3 is Machado. I think when you're picking between Devers and Machado, you're kind of, it's personal preference more than anything. I feel like when I look at Devers, he's performing incredibly well despite struggling a little bit. He's not walking much at all, sub 5% walk rate right now. I watched some of his at-bats and he's frustrated and he's throwing his bat, and his expression looks like he's really struggling, but he's hitting 340. Machado, we can, depending on, I've said this before, he's proven that he'll steal bases if his team's in contention, and he stops stealing bases if his team is not, which I think is actually a really smart thing to do on his part, because he doesn't want to risk injury. But he's got I think 7 steals so far already this year.
Mhm.
And again, hugely valuable, especially with his production. And Jose Ramirez is just an alien. I think we need to check his DNA to see if he's actually human. A 14% walk rate and a 7% K rate. And he's like, I know he's not pudgy. I know he's strong, but he looks pudgy on the field. And he's got 7 steals and cat-like quickness at third base, and slug of 632 currently. He's really, really, really awesome. I think he's in the running for AL MVP this year for sure.
He was your AL MVP, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I think rest of the year he's in the running as well.
I gotcha.
The one category that might hurt him is runs, just because there's not a whole lot of players to drive him in, but he does have 53 RBIs already.
Yep.
So that's my 10-1. I'm pretty confident in most of those players. Bryant, Moncada, again, Moncada scares the heck out of me, but I'm not giving up yet. Prospects on the rise. So we each picked a prospect to highlight and talk a little bit about. I think there probably be kind of diamonds in the rough or prospects that are just starting to be talked about. Who's yours?
I want to talk a little bit about Gunnar Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 reasons I highlighted him. The first was I downloaded RotoWire has batted ball data for minor leagues. And I did a filter of players with a sub 20% K rate, greater than 10% walk rate, and sorted it by descending hard hit rate.
Mhm.
And Gunner, who's a shortstop prospect, just turned 21, in the Baltimore Orioles organization, was fourth when I ran that filter. And also this week he was promoted to AAA.
Mhm.
So he's in a 21-year-old who's in AAA and potentially on the doorstep to go into MLB. So so far this year he's slashing 312, 452, 573. He has, again, plate skills are one of the things that I filtered, but he has a 19.7% walk rate and only striking out 18.3% of the time, which generates an OBP of 452.
Mhm.
So he's not going to help you in speed. Isn't that's not part of his game, but he's definitely going to stay at third. Again, he's listed as a shortstop on a lot of lists. He will be moved to third, and yeah, just a good OBP power, interesting bat. I wish he was in a different org. However, I do hope the Orioles can start to hit on some of these guys, and he is someone who's already rostered in our dynasty league, and I wish he was available.
I wonder what they do with the left side of their infield with Kobe Mayo coming up eventually as well, because Mayo is going to stick at third unless they move him over to first. To your point, Gunnar Henderson is 6'2", 210, at least listed that way on Fangraphs, and as a third base shortstop. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. Yeah, I think he was picked up about 3 weeks ago in our league. It's a pretty astute pickup. The other thing is he's a left-handed hitter, so any right-handed power hitters in Baltimore make me nervous because they moved that fence back so far, but left field is still playing the same, or right field is still playing the same way that it has previously. So I don't think there's that much of a worry. The other concerning part about Henderson is in A and high A last year, he ran 29.3 and 30.1% K rates. I know this year it's down to 18.3% in Double A. So, he looks like he may have made some sort of adjustment to his swing or to his approach to bring his K rate down that far. But I want to know what that adjustment is and if it's an adjustment that's going to stick. Because if he has ran 30% K rates before that, is that number going to spike once he comes up to the majors? But other than that, he looks like a great prospect.
Yeah, it's a good call on Kobe Mayo. He's someone also on my radar, but I neglected to remember that he's also plays third base. So he's currently
huge. Yeah,
he's currently high A.
Kobe Mayo, I think, is 6'5", I want to say. Yeah, 6'5", 215. So he's right. So I think I like Mayo personally better as a prospect. I think he has more fantasy upside than Henderson does. Henderson's kind of a 55 type of guy across the board. Whereas Mayo is, Fangraphs has Mayo's game power as 60 and raw as 70, and a 55 hit tool. But again, we might see, from a value perspective, if you're running that organization, if you can get Gunnar Henderson to play a serviceable shortstop and have Mayo at third, you've got a lot of offense on the left side. But probably more realistically, we see Mayo go to a corner outfielder or first base sort of profile, which at which point you need to see his power play up a little bit more.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm interested to see how they grade out defensively and how that affects their possible promotion and opportunity.
For sure. So my prospect on the rise is predictably Jackson Chourio, Venezuelan player signed by the Brewers in 2021. He's barely 18 years old. He's 18 years old in 2 months. He is currently rostered in our league, which I absolutely love, because we have 5 minor league spots for each team in a 16-team league, and Chourio is already rostered. He's Baseball America's number 43 prospect. Baseball Prospectus just released their top 500 dynasty prospects, and Chourio rose to number 67. So he moved 180 spots in their dynasty prospect rankings. And Fangraphs had him as the 8th rated prospect in the Brewers organization to start the year off. He's listed at 6'1", 165. his tools, so Fangraphs gave him a 60 hit, 45 game power, 50 raw power, 60 speed, 60 field, and a future value of 45. They do that, I think, prior to him really kind of hitting stateside minor league ball. So my assumption is that some of those, specifically the hit and the power, would come up a little bit after seeing what he's done so far. So an A ball as an 18-year-old, in 127 plate appearances, he has 23 runs, 4 homers, 25 RBIs, 3 steals, and a triple slash of 371, 417, 595. He was signed as a middle infielder, and he's now considered a center field prospect. But, to have a speed power, lanky, skinny 18-year-old, not only holding his own in A ball, but actually like being a star in A ball is a pretty big deal. I know some prospect outlets have moved Churio above Joey Weimer already in their prospect rankings. Weimer is probably their other outfield prospect worth noting. The only thing that gives me a little pause is he is running a 26% K rate, which again for an 18-year-old A ball isn't bad, but he's also righty. So I prefer those types of speed players for me to be left-handed. And but other than that, he's, I think a fast riser. We could see him in the major leagues by age 21. I would assume that they go slowly with him and they maybe push him to AA next year as a 19-year-old. But if he played high A as a 19-year-old and had a little bit of AA and then a full season in AA as a 20-year-old, that would probably be prudent, I think. But Jackson Churio is a really fun player. Which brings me to another question, kind of on the periphery of something we've discussed previously. If you roster a prospect like Churio, right, who I think we can comfortably say is a good hitter with decent power and pretty good speed, and he's an outfielder, is he, even at his peak, is he someone that you are keeping? And if you're indecisive about whether he's a keeper, is he worth having as a prospect?
To your second question, I would say no. I think if you don't think that he's going to be, a star, then you shouldn't be holding him for that long.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do believe that, then you should be making room for that longer view.
Right. I think about the reason why I asked the question about Churio is I was thinking about that with Alec Thomas. And if Alec Thomas is Andrew Benintendi or something in that range, right? Like, what are we trading? Why are we trading for him? And not to say that he's fungible or replaceable, like off the waiver wire necessarily, but he's not going to cost a ton of capital to acquire a player like that down the road. Mm-hmm. And so to have him in one of your minor league spots, your minor league spot, it might even be more valuable having a player that might have a little bit of value on the trade market, but that you can shuttle back and forth between the majors and the minors. I'm starting to rethink that 4th and 5th minor league spot in our league, because you might be better off having 3 premium prospects that you're just sitting on and using the other spots for roster flexibility. I know that you've done some of that already, but I'm starting to rethink my thought process because of, deep dives like this, where you're looking at Churio and you're excited and he's somebody a lot of people are talking about, and you look and you're like, okay, well, what's his upside? He might grow into his body and find a lot more power, but you're kind of hoping or wishing that happens, where you want like the 50th percentile player to be the player that's worth keeping. So I just think it's an interesting value question when you start to think about how highly we value some of these minor league players sometimes in relation to major league players. Yeah,
it's a story problem from high school that doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, totally. Right on. All right, series that we're looking forward to. Anything catch your eye for this weekend?
I had to scrape pretty good. I did come up with a few. The Dodgers and the Giants is always a competitive series.
Yep. And
they're in San Francisco this weekend. Boston and Seattle to me is compelling. Seattle is having a winning road trip and they'll be coming home. And Boston has been also streaking in a positive direction. So the pitching matchup for that one that stuck out to me is Sunday, Robbie Ray and Garrett Whitlock. Whitlock's really kind of hit some struggles in his starting role
Mhm.
for the first time, and have not also seen Ray live. So interested to see. I'm going to try to make that a priority to watch that game live and see those two pitchers in real time. And then the other series I'm interested in is Tampa and Minnesota.
Mhm.
Twins were one of my favorite watches. And in a similar note, Friday Joe Ryan pitches, and outside of me kind of just dismissing him a little bit here and there on the pod, I'd like to see him in person because he has posted positive results thus far. And I probably need to take him a little bit more seriously. So I like to watch him and see what I see. And he's returning from the COVID IL and should make that start.
He's got some black magic going with that fastball.
Yep.
There's something going on with the fastball. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. So maybe that'll be my deep dive next time. See.
I love it. So the series I'm looking forward to the same as yours. I wrote down or typed down Dodgers at Giants and Red Sox at Mariners, and then highlighted a few pitching matchups over the next 4 days that I'm excited about. I want to see McClanahan against the Cardinals. Cardinals are pretty good against left-handed pitching, and McClanahan obviously has been a beast up so far, but the Cardinals are the type of team that can knock you back down a peg if you're not careful. And then Dodgers against White Sox matchup is Tyler Anderson against Dylan Cease. Two pitchers we've talked about quite a bit, so I like that matchup a lot.
Besides in contrast there, I like it.
Joe Madden just got fired.
You're shitting me.
Nope, I just came across. I don't know why, but just came across. The Angels announced they fired manager Joe Madden. Buster Olney of ESPN reported shortly before the team announced that such a move was under consideration. Phil Kevin will take over on an interim basis. It's crazy.
Wow. Well, you lose 12 in a row.
Right.
All bets are off, I guess.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
Yep. So getting back to the matchups, Friday, I put Zach Gallen versus Zach Wheeler. I think that the Battle of the Zacks is an underrated matchup. Both pitchers are outstanding. Giants Dodgers is Bueller versus Webb. That'll be a fun one to watch. And then my favorite Friday night matchup is Roansy Contreras versus Spencer Strider. So
man.
It's awesome, right?
Oh man.
So two young.
Write that down. Friday.
That's right. Two rookie pitching prospects that I would say were slightly under the radar coming into the year, but are incredibly exciting, fast rising pitchers. So if you're going to pick one game to watch on Friday night, I suggest Pirates at Braves, Contreras versus Strider. Saturday, I've got Martin Perez against Lucas Giolito. I don't know. Did you watch Perez against the Mariners this weekend?
No.
I know his stuff plus is like horrendous, but his two seam and his changeup are just, he's learned how to pitch and he has really incredible command. And he's learned how to pitch in that park. I think he's a legit SP2 in fantasy right now. And, if he falls off a cliff, it wouldn't surprise me, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he continues this entire year doing what he's doing. He's been really, really impressive to me. Hunter Green against the Cardinals. He really is starting to figure it out. He's going to be inconsistent, as we all know. There's been a lot of write-ups about the pitch sequencing of Hunter Green and having him throw his slider much more than the fastball. And I think it's increased the effectiveness of his fastball. I read that the slug on his fastball recently is down into the 400s instead of in the 900s where it was previously. And it's just because of sequencing. And then encouragement of him throwing a little bit more changeup. But again, the Cardinals is a great offense and they can eat him up if he's not careful. And then the 7:00 matchup on Saturday night is Red Sox against the Mariners, and it's George Kirby. So for me, that's always must watch. And then one more.
Is he back in your good graces? He's back in your starting rotation?
Absolutely, he is, man. After last start, for sure.
All right.
I'm up and down with him, but I love me some George Kirby. And then Sunday, the Dodgers at the Giants and Carlos Rodon. I'm glad that that's Sunday where I can pick and choose whether to actually start him or not, because he's been struggling a little bit shaky, and the Dodgers obviously have a great offense. And the other matchup that I want to highlight is Marlins at Astros, but it's Cabrera against Javier. So a really good test for Cabrera and his 94-mile-an-hour changeup against a really good offense in the Houston Astros. So both pitchers are exciting. Both pitchers super fun to watch. Not quite Contreras Strider for me, but pretty darn close. So some fun baseball this weekend for sure.
Yeah,
I guess every weekend is fun baseball to me, but
no, you did a great job pulling out some pitching matchups there.
Some good stuff. Open forum.
So my open forum question is, what situation or circumstance presents the biggest challenge for keeping fantasy in proper perspective? So we know where fantasy should belong in relation to our teams and like our real life teams and real life players and our life context, but what situations or predicaments are challenging for you where you get it turned on its head, where you get stressed out, or are you able to just always keep fantasy in proper perspective?
I would challenge, and this is not a cop out, and we're going to need more than the 5 minutes left on this particular Zoom meeting to answer this question. This is a good one. I would start by saying that I'm a firm believer in that there are no like standards or shoulds, and if something like fantasy baseball provides an outlet, a healthy outlet, and stress relief and an opportunity to interact with friends and have friends, that there is no real limit unless it jeopardizes your marriage or your relationships, right? Or your ability to take care of a home, whatever that might be. Because fact of the matter is, I think both of us don't, well, I'll speak for myself. I don't necessarily have a whole lot of hobbies other than baseball and fantasy baseball. And so when I'm at work, I'm lucky enough to have a job where I can have my phone out and follow, Gamecast on my phone. And when I type up my schedule for the week, I put in all the games of all my pitchers on my calendar. So I know I get a notification every time my pitcher is about to start. I don't know if you're asking that or for specific situations.
Yeah, I was like more specific situation. For example, like if you have two pitchers, or like your ace going against your favorite real life team.
So I took it way the hell over here.
Then. Took it way over there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's good perspective either way.
No, I don't think that there's anything that really stresses me out. I would say the closest is two things come to mind. The closest would be like Martin Perez against George Kirby on last Sunday, right? So I'm rooting for a low scoring game in which Julio Rodriguez hits 2 home runs and steals 27 bases. Like that's the closest that it comes to me. For me, it comes to being stressful. That, and I don't mind a close Sunday and head to head, right? Going into Sunday where it's a close matchup. If I'm losing a matchup, it will ruin my Sunday baseball watching, right? If I'm getting bombed in a head-to-head matchup, the end of the week, I would probably just say I'm going to watch the Mariners game because I'm a Mariners fan, and I'm going to find something else to do with my time because I'm angry about the fact that I'm losing. But I think that's the closest it comes for me to actually getting to, going too far off the deep end with fantasy. That and the amount of time invested in baseball is just like all of my free time is basically reading baseball books, watching baseball, playing MLB The Show, building a database that is, baseball driven. It's just, I don't know. It's just kind of who we are, I guess.
So in that instance where your Sunday, you're in a bad spot with your matchup,
Mhm.
You give yourself grace to be mad and say like, hey, I'm just gonna watch the Mariners? Or do you feel that in the moment of like, I shouldn't let this affect me, I should be able to watch the other games? Or you just accept it?
I don't, no, I don't judge it at all. If I'm pissed, I'm pissed. If my
Mm.
team's not playing well, I'm pissed. Like as a kid, I think I've said this before, as a kid, if the Mariners lost, and I'm still this way. If the Mariners lost, I don't want to read the newspaper. I don't want to read that they lost. I'm not interested. You know, if I come home from work at, 9:30 and the Mariners have already lost the game, and I know that because I'm watching it on Gamecast, I'm not watching the condensed game. I might watch a Julio home run, but that's about it.
Right.
Just it's not, no, and I don't judge it because it's not I feel that strongly about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think it's a healthy way to let go of some of that stuff. Let's take a quick break. I'm interested in your response to your own question. Aaron's answer to the question. Here goes. I'm
Yeah,
ready.
I was coming to you for the answers. I'll just say, first of all, that I don't know. Do you know who's pitching for the White Sox today against the Dodgers by chance?
I don't. If I
Okay.
can find it.
Their only left-handed starter is Keuchel, right?
Keuchel's gone.
He was demoted.
They cut him. He just signed with boy, who did he sign with? Diamondbacks, maybe?
I think that sounds right because they talked about him being reunited with Strom.
It's Kopech and Mitch White.
Okay. Okay.
You avoiding the question or?
Partially, I just popped on Fantrax during our break, and Zach McKinstry is benched, and I was wondering why he's not playing against a right-handed pitcher. Yeah, I'm starting to question roster resources placement of McKinstry on the depth chart. The answer to your question, Tino, I was, to be truthful, this is something I struggle with a lot. I end up spending a lot of time being frustrated and down about fantasy baseball, and it's not a place I want to be in.
Wait, can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah, you can.
We're in first place in TGFBI, and you are in first place, and I'm in second place in our home league.
Yep.
So where does that frustration come from if you're in first place in both leagues?
That's a great, I think that's the part of what drives the question for me is, what is it about, Aaron? If you are not able to keep these things in perspective, like, what are you doing here? So like Sunday, for example, so I was at a game and they had a scoreboard. My goal was to go to the game and to just focus on the game. They had a huge scoreboard like opposite of my seat, so I could see like all the scores of the games, and it just became a huge distraction for me because I was in a tight matchup, and like seeing all the scores go up, I just was like super distracted by it, and I wanted to be able to just focus on the game. I just couldn't stop worrying about, how's Clevenger doing? Is Romano going to be in the position for a save, or just worrying about the outcomes. It just was a huge distraction, and I have all these things in place to mitigate like how much I'm on my phone, how much I check. But when it gets down to the end of the week, I've learned you have to pay more attention, because there might be subtle matchup things, and you could give away categories by making an uninformed choice. So that sort of veil that I keep over the flow of information to mitigate that during the week kind of comes up during the weekend. And so a lot of times it's just a stress fest on the weekend. But I guess I would
challenge that though. Like, again, not to go too far off the deep end, but why is there, if you get joy from scoreboard watching and being at the game, why do you attach a should to it? Right? Like, you may have walked into Citizens Bank ballpark wanting to and expecting to be present with the game itself, right? But if you enjoy yourself by watching the scoreboard half the time and watching the game half the time, like, but my own personal values or personal perspective is like, shit, just enjoy it. Like, let go of, in my opinion, let go of the should and just like be there, right? There's nothing wrong with doing it that way, even if your stated goal walking into the stadium was to just be present with the game. And I think that I have learned to embrace that with regards to, again, getting frustrated or angry with the teams that I love, including my own fantasy team. Yeah, like, sorry, I'm going to get angry. Like, it's one of the few things I get angry about in life. And I think that's okay, right? It's a healthy way to do it. So that'd be my challenge to you is, if you want to dedicate that amount of time to, and just keep the flow of information like open, the bore open the entire day, all the time. If it's not distracting you from the things you need to be doing, why not?
Right.
We love it. It's what we love to do. And look at someone like, our buddy Matt. Matt's highly accomplished, tenured professor and 2 children and successful family and all those things. And the reality is I was at I don't think I'm saying too much, but like I was at a very important, I'll just to say a very important family occasion for him, attending a couple years ago, and he's in the background checking scores, and I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. It's what he loves. So anyways, I really, again, challenge you. And this is friend to friend, not just on the podcast, but friend to friend, like go to the game and do both.
Yeah. I got some work to do, man.
Nah, we all do. We all do. My open forum question, we don't take too long on this one, is do you have a favorite era of baseball or an era of baseball that you say to yourself, I wish that baseball was like this?
I don't, and my reason is simply that I think the era that we're in now has meant the most to me.
Huh. How come?
It's been the most inclusive, like the most connecting and the most enriching part. The last 10 to 12 to 15 years of just coming back to baseball, learning fantasy, meeting you guys, going to games, it's just brought so much more into my life. And when I was young and I liked baseball, I don't remember it being just such a rich thing as it is now. Like we had a lot of our extracurriculars as people that have grown kids and have jobs and responsibilities, like what little time we have to invest for ourselves, we put into baseball. And so, yeah, I would say for me that this is it. This is the most enriching time. This is the most meaningful time for me with the sport, because my engagement with it is so high. And again, it's just brought so much positive connection and into my daily life. Like I love baseball season. When it's over, I'm depressed because my days are like drastically different, and it's like a hole until it comes back.
We have the pod though to look forward to, and the level of the added level of research that we've taken on. And I think that's part of the reason why I think we were so excited for baseball season to start, that we were like, let's start this project. We eat, sleep, and breathe it already. Let's do it. I appreciate your response, because in the one sense, I was thinking just more, I think, thinking about it from a little different perspective, the question, but you're right. Because my immediate response to the question, if I ask myself, would be, well, it's like the late 80s, right? Mid-late 80s, where you had tons of speed and hitters like Tony Gwynn and Wade Boggs and the players that I grew up with. It was the start of Griffey. It was before steroids were really a big deal in baseball. And I romanticize that era, and I always bring up the Cardinals Royals World Series in '85. But realistically speaking, my favorite era, as you said, is now, because I'm most engaged with baseball, and because I think the few friends that I am really close to don't even live in the same city as me, because baseball is such an important thing, that the level of our passion for baseball is almost what's most important in our closest friends. Right. So the current era, I agree. And the other point you brought up that I love is baseball is more inclusive than it's ever been. It's more, I think, ethnically mixed than it's ever been. I will go off for a quick second and say that what happened in Tampa Bay the last couple of days has really angered me quite a bit, with how the players reacted to having pride emblems on their uniforms, to the point where I cut Brooks Raley because I felt like he was, as I alluded to earlier, I felt like he was a fungible player. And that's going against where I think baseball is headed. But yeah, I think we see more, we've talked about this before too, we see more expression in baseball than we ever have, right? The unwritten rules are being thrown in the garbage, and players are allowed to express themselves. And I think that's even though it's not my generation, it's a really incredible generational step to allow players to do that. So I appreciate your answer, because it wasn't what I was thinking coming into the question, but I think you're absolutely right.
Thank you. I would have been easy to be fake and nostalgic, but I honestly, like, my youth and baseball then, they're just memories, and yeah, this feels much more real.
Right.
Hopefully in 20 years, I'll be able to pick a decade that was a highlight, but
hopefully in 20 years, honestly, hopefully in 20 years, we're saying this is our favorite era of baseball because we're still as engaged with it as we were previously.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So we move on to cards.
Yeah, that's it.
So I don't have any more packs, but I'm going to share that Mariners team set that I had that I was telling you about, because I think it's kind of funny.
Is it this year's team set? Because when I was at Citizens Bank this weekend, you could buy packs of the entire roster of the Phillies for that year. Is that what that is?
That's cool. No, this is actually, I don't know the history of these cards. So this is, let me see it. My eyes are so bad. So these were made by Upper Deck.
Okay.
And they are 2001, I believe. Oh, my eyes are so bad now. And I'll go through them really quickly because it's a full team set, but they're called victory cards. Oh, here, let me turn off the blur. Let's see here. There we go. So this is Raul Ibanez. We're going to go blast from the past. Love Freddie Garcia, who I absolutely loved as a pitcher. Edgar.
Oh, man.
Actually, not my favorite Mariner, and not even probably top 5. Jay Buhner, who I think was a little bit overrated. Jamie Moyer, who I think was a little underrated. Do you know Jamie Moyer? I think he pitched till he was 49.
I know he pitched well into his 40s. I did not know he was 49.
John Olerud. Have you heard the John Olerud? I think it's fake, but the anecdote about John Olerud and Ricky Henderson?
No.
So, Olerud had an aneurysm when he was at Washington State. And so he wore a batting helmet in the field. And Ricky Henderson and John Olerud played together. I think it was on the Mets. And when Ricky came to the Mariners, he said to John Olerud, he's like, "Oh, I played with another guy just like you that wore a helmet in the field too." Not realizing that it was John Olerud. It might be an old wives' tale, but it's a story that's been told a ton. I think it's pretty funny. Aaron Seeley from the state of Washington, that's another rant. The way that Mariners fans overvalue players from the state of Washington makes me so mad. Willie Bloomquist and Aaron Seeley used to piss me off. And it wasn't because of the type of players they were, it's because Mariners fans refused to believe that they weren't stars. One of my favorite Mariners of all time, Mike Cameron.
There you go.
Really love Mike Cameron. Ooh, John Halama. Remember him? John Halama was a left-handed starter that was traded in I think it was the Randy Johnson trade when we traded him away to the Astros was it Johnson we traded to the Astros? It was. The trade was for Halama, Freddie Garcia, and Carlos Guillen, I believe. I'll have to look that up. David Bell, never liked him. Now manager David Bell. Gil Mesh, former Uber prospect. Carlos Guillen. Party Hardy, Carlos Guillen. Mark McLemore, one of my dynasty baseball favorites. Stan Javier. Al Martin. Ooh, that's a bad one. Dan Wilson, another one of overrated Seattle Mariners by Mariners fans. Kazuhiro Sasaki. A lot of fun. And the other card is that I saw listed for $600. It was rated as a mint 10, but I saw it listed as a $600 card. This is an Ichiro rookie.
Oh my,
Kind of cool, right?
yes.
So I don't know that it's a mint 10 anymore, but certainly worth something. Anyways, the fun set that I found buried when I was going through some boxes. What do you know?
So when did those come out?
2001, I believe, but my eyes are not good enough to actually be able to read the year. But the year listed, the stats listed for Raul Ibanez, the last year was 2000. So all the players are stats for 2000, meaning it was a 2001 card.
Alrighty, this is another opening day pack. I have quite a few left.
Oh, I need to get me some Moose.
Sockets. Oh, this might be worth something.
Nice, Juan Soto. It's also not a Julio rookie. I'll be pissed.
Yeah,
I'll be ready to buy that off you. The quickness.
there's a Josh Donaldson. I'm not even gonna waste our time with that.
Appreciate you.
Another mascot for Laura.
Wait, what was that? Rangers mascot?
Yeah, it was it's a Ranger captain. I give her all the mascot cards.
By the way, we need to get rid of the Rangers as a mascot in general because
Ooh, look at it.
the history of the Texas Rangers is not a very nice one. But go ahead. Goldie.
Blue uniform there, Goldschmidt. Brian Mountcastle.
Okay. I feel bad for him. They need to trade him to a park where he can actually hit home runs.
And we have a Future Stars and a City Connect uniform, Joey Bart.
Nice. That's one of your favorite catchers, huh?
No.
He's got that Aaron Alvis profile. No, I'm kidding. We both hate that profile. The Mike Zunino power and nothing else catcher.
I know that you don't like his Savant page, man, but every time I watch Tyler Stevenson taking a bat, it just makes me happy. He's one of my few wins.
I'm glad that Tyler Stevenson can provide somebody with some happiness. That's great.
I just
All right, brother.
every time I watch him hit at the plate, I'm like, this guy's gonna hit 300 for the next 5 years.
If he continues to hit first, it continues to be a Cincinnati Red. Yes. If they're too cheap and they trade him before he signs a contract, then no. We shall see.
Alrighty.
All right, brother. Saturday morning.
Yep.
Something like that. Cool.
All right.
Always
Talk
a
then.
pleasure.
You well.
All right.
You.
Happy baseball.